Hi, I'm Natasha. I'm 5 feet tall. My dog's name is Toasty, and you're listening to How We Roll.
Yes, Toasty is an icon.
When it comes to working in entertainment, there's a lot of hows, and they all boil down to how we navigate this wild industry. While how we follow our dreams is uncertain, how we roll along the way is in our hands. Welcome to How We Roll, a podcast for actors by casting networks.
Natasha, I am so excited to have you on How We Roll today. Thank you for being here.
I'm so excited too. I've been watching you do this podcast now for months, and it's such a cool endeavor. Really, really smart on your end and casting networks, and excited
Oh,
to be a part of it.
thank you. Well, we're thrilled to have you join the How We Roll family. And I will say, I've been observing you for years now in the way you interact with your clients, including me. I'm so lucky. And you
Oh,
counsel all of us on so many topics. And so I think there's so many topics that you're qualified to cover. One of them is what we're going to break down today, how to choose the best city to live for you as an actor, you friend listening. And so our listeners are so lucky to have you in their ears right now. Before we kind of get to breaking that down, first of all, very important question here. In researching you, which was kind of fun because I haven't really done that since I guess before we first met, I see rom-coms are your guilty pleasure, Natasha. So just hit us with your favorite before we dive in.
they are. I love them. Wow, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days might be my favorite.
That's a good one.
I love Leap Year. I think it's just so like beautiful and special and unique. I don't know. I really enjoyed Anyone But You, which is like semi-recent, but
Oh,
really
yeah.
fun and different. I love that like enemies to friends to lovers trope, right? That's always a fun thing.
Yeah.
Those are some solid choices.
Those are excellent choices. We got some Amy Adams. We got some iconic gold dress with Kate Hudson.
And Matthew McConaughey, like
He was a rom-com star before
he
he
was, and then he
shifted.
wasn't. He literally was like, I am not doing this anymore. And more power to him. But yeah.
Yeah, it was not a failure to launch for him to
No.
become an A-lister, if you know what I did there. But now that we've covered that, I want to move into a different location where we're going to live as actors. And before even looking at all the options we have to outline here today, because I think this is a big thing to try and tackle within our time frame here, what do you think actors can do to kind of hone in on their personal goals as artists in the sense of, I think we can begin our careers wherever we are, right? I think you have to begin where you are. And we kind of need to then know who we are and what we want. In some sense, it can change before we move forward. So I would love to start there with you. What are your thoughts on that?
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I think as humans, I think in an ideal world, we all know what we want. We have a perfect plan, and we check off the boxes as we go along. But none of that's real. And none of that ever really works out exactly as you had hoped. So I think ideally, yes, we should all know enough about ourselves as humans, as artists, as performers, to get a sense of like, well, what city would be the best place for what I'm looking to do to thrive. I know we're going to break down a little bit about that today, but as a person, if you're looking to pursue a particular path, where the best place to do that is. I think, and we'll talk about New York and we'll talk about LA, but if you are a theater lover, your natural inclination is to go to New York, right? Where the opportunities are vast and endless there in that space. If the goal is to be more in an on camera world, what people believe is that heading to LA is the answer to that. And that's not necessarily always the case. So I think we'll break that down a little bit later. But yes, knowing who you are as a human being will help you make decisions on where you want to live. And ultimately, that's what we're talking about here is like, where do you
Hmm.
want to lay your head at night? Where, what location is going to give you joy? What location is not going to give you joy? What are ancillary factors, right? Like personal relationships, business relationships. It's not easy to make a very strong decision without kind of weighing everybody that is part of your support system and is part of your life.
Hmm.
So in terms of how you know enough about yourself, I think the simple answer is what's the right answer for you right now, right here in this moment. It may not be the same answer 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line.
Hmm. Yeah, trusting your gut. I love that. Thank you for sharing that. And so let's move into how to find out where to live in 10 days, in 10 minutes, 10 minutes times six, 60 minutes. So to keep the rom-com theme going, a big picture question here. When you have your meet cute with a potential client, when you first meet a client, how much weight do you put on where they're based? You know, self-tapes kind of rule now. Does location matter as much right now?
I mean, 10 years ago, yes. Now, not so much. I think before it made sense to be like in a major city in New York or in LA or close enough to it. But now, yeah, self tapes are pretty much the go to for the, first round of auditions. And with that being the case, it's less important to me when I'm interviewing a client. What is most important to me when I have these conversations with clients is, wherever you are in the world, do you have the capacity, the means, the ability to get yourself to one of these major cities for potential callbacks or,
Hmm.
the next steps in the process? But the initial step, with self tapes being the norm, it no longer really matters. I prefer actually to meet an actor who's very happy where they are, wherever that is, and where they're and that their lives are being fulfilled and that there are more options for them than strictly focusing on acting. I think we could go off tangent. We can talk about
Yeah,
this for
I
days
love a
and months
tangent.
and years. But no, but I mean, unfortunately, like a lot of actors are very glued to this business. And sometimes when you are slightly obsessed with the possibility that you will make it,
Hmm.
you sort of lose sight of everything else that makes the world beautiful. You lose sight of the possibilities that you might find great hobbies, great things that excite you outside of just putting out self tapes and getting on set. And so essentially, I feel like if I meet an actor that is feeling really happy where they are, that has a fulfilled life outside of acting and a great support system, that actually makes them better and stronger.
Hmm.
And that strength and that knowledge that comes from all these other interpersonal relationships actually help make them a better actor and ultimately lead to more bookings
Hmm.
than those that focus too much on the individual tape in the moment, that particular role, because there are thousands of roles.
Yeah.
But like what makes them, what's ultimately going to enrich their lives as a whole. And ultimately for me, if an actor gets on, on a meeting with me or, we have a phone call and they say, hey, I'm based in Vegas or I'm based in Texas, or I'm just like, that's fantastic. What do you like to do for fun there? Like,
Hmm.
let me learn more about you as a human being, because where you are, again, we're focusing on the here and the now, right? Where you are right now is not where you're going to be in 5 years or 10 years, or God willing, a role takes you anywhere that you've ever wanted to be, or multiple roles.
Yeah, I love that. Well, you mentioned Vegas, and I'll be there trying to track down Jean Smart. I'm loving Hacks. Although apparently she's going to be in New York this coming season, which is great. So
Yeah.
that's one of the cities that we're going to touch on in this little warm up flash round game, Natasha. I just thought it could
Okay.
kind of turn the fire up a little bit. I'm
Sure.
calling it location, location, location. I'll name a location, and you tell me what you think is generally the best about it as a market, or what makes it unique for an actor. Whatever pops into your head first is great, and you
Okay.
reserve the right to change your mind, everybody. So let's
Sounds
get in
good.
the car and roll.
Okay.
They gave me a soundboard. They shouldn't have done
Yeah,
that.
they
Okay.
shouldn't have done
They should not have done
that.
that. Okay, we're going to get into these first two a bit later on, but right off the bat, New York City.
Yeah, I mean, New York City it's a cultural hub, right? I mean, it's a city that has so much diversity. It's slightly like unmatched, I think, in that way. I think it's a global center for like arts and entertainment, which is really exciting. We are like titans of industry in a really interesting way. When you go out and about in the city, you go to a club or you go to a bar, you go to a restaurant and you meet people. You're not strictly meeting actors. You are
Hmm.
meeting people, from the financial space. You are meeting people that live in the fashion world, right? We are one of the fashion capitals of the world.
Yeah.
There is so much more to our city than people think, and learning from all of these different povs and these perspectives actually makes, I think, me a better human, and so many people that live in New York City, better, not that New York City is better, but better
Well,
people
no.
in the in the entertainment space, because ultimately, like, being a great actor is also about having lived experience, right? You can't speak about pain until you've seen it. You can't speak about the hustle and the bustle till you've lived it.
Hmm.
So I definitely think that, if you are a person, an actor, a human, a creative of any kind, that thrives in an environment that just is so massive and yet at the same time so tight knit, New York is the place that you want to be.
I love that. And we're going to get into the next one in a moment as well. LA, what would you say that's best for?
I think LA is, there are a lot of positives and negatives. LA was and will always be Hollywood, right? It will be the ideal, the thing that we all, hope to achieve ultimately. But LA has gone through a lot of changes. I think LA has definitely suffered a little bit post the pandemic, post the strike. Tax incentives in the city, of Los Angeles have unfortunately cut a lot of their production short. And
Mm,
I think that there's a lot of misconception there. But LA is absolutely beautiful. Me personally, if I could take the hustle and the bustle and the excitement of New York and put it in the weather
in the
that exists in
sunshine.
LA,
Yes.
I'm there. I'm a beach gal myself. Like, so personally, I might talk a little shade about LA, but it's actually because I'm just straight up jealous.
I feel that.
But yeah, I'm so jealous. I'm going there next month and I'm gonna be there for a significant period of time. But
Yay.
yes, it's always lovely to be able to see both sides. But yes, LA, something that I think might be unique to LA, is networking. I think the
Mm,
opportunity in LA for networking is really massive. I think just off the cuff, you have more premieres, right? There are more Hollywood premieres in LA. I think for various reasons, obviously weather, timing, definitely one of them. Another reason is that there is a lot of production on the West Coast, whether that is Vancouver or whether that is California or whether it is Utah or whether it is Vegas, as we just talked
mm,
about. And so cast and crew, naturally are going to head that way for said premieres. And I think those premieres provide a lot of opportunity for actors as they're rising up, right? Getting to go on those carpets, getting to socialize. Outside of premieres, there are a lot of networking opportunities for actors that join different sort of groups, like for example members of the Television Academy. They provide so many fantastic opportunities for actors to go and mix and mingle and meet creatives and ultimately, I think LA is a really solid space for that, right? For someone who is
mm.
very good in that space. Other than, yeah, I mean, the weather, there are a lot of fantastic castings and there's casting opportunities on both sides, right? There are a lot of projects in production in both places.
Yeah.
But I think for LA specifically, I think it's also important for folks looking to move out there that aren't from there to understand that while it is a city, it is not like New York City. It is not a location where you could potentially do a casting at 1 o'clock and then a casting at 2:30. Like there's no universe where the traffic will allow you to
Hmm.
do that. They do not have that sort of transportation system in place. And also, things, even if they feel close together, are quite a hike. Everything in New York pretty much lives in the Midtown area, give or
Hmm.
take, right? And so you
Yeah.
can bop around from one place to the other. With LA, it's a little more scattered, and that is a little bit different. But again, it's definitely Hollywood. It's definitely a bit of the glitz and glam, and it's the place that I think a lot of folks ultimately hope to end up.
Yeah. Well, you
Yeah,
mentioned traffic. Speaking of, we're going to shift into the fast lane here with this car. We're going to put the pedal to the metal, and I'm going to name a bunch more places too, maybe
oh
ones
no,
that aren't known for being as iconically associated with the industry, although some of them are nowadays. And you
sure.
just say like the first thing that pops into your head so we can fly through these ones here. The next one has been on the rise. So, Atlanta, what would you say that's the best for in your opinion?
Oh, I think Atlanta has a really unique urban market, if that makes sense.
Okay.
I think Tyler Perry really created a fantastic hub there, and has a what's the best way to explain it? Basically, has like a real handle on the city and its people, and I think he's done a brilliant job of creating, especially in the pandemic. I mean, what he was able to pull off and to achieve
Yeah.
when so many others couldn't. Like it's such a testament to him. But yes, Atlanta is interesting. Atlanta has a bit of the warmth of LA, but also a bit of the city vibe of New York.
I like that. Speaking of warmth, somehow this car is going to speed over to Miami. What's Miami the best for?
Fashion.
I love that.
Miami
Vogue.
is a fashion space. Yeah.
Okay, Chicago.
Windy?
It
No,
is.
it is. I mean, there are a couple of cool productions that shoot in Chicago. I think The Bear is out there.
Hmm.
I know that the Chicago PDs and the Meds and a lot of the procedurals. However, while there are casting offices directly in Chicago, there are also casting these projects out of New York.
That's true as well.
Interestingly enough, yeah.
Okay, we're going to go to a different sort of fashion hub, which we might talk about later on. London. What's that the best
Yeah,
for?
London is fantastic for theater. They have quite the scene, right? The West End over there is pretty much the Broadway of that side of the world. They would say that we're the West End of our side of the world, but what can you do? I think, and London also has a thriving TV and film space at the moment. I mean, the Emmy winning group from adolescence will give you that answer right off the bat, right? They
So
are
good.
creating really propulsive and fantastic work out there, and it's a huge opportunity for actors that maybe want to see what things look like on the other side of the Atlantic.
And to continue this propulsive game, Australia.
Oh my, Australia. I mean that's a fantastic production hub. They do a lot of stuff. They birth a lot of real solid actors. A lot of talent are
Mm,
coming out of Australia. All the agents and managers are looking to scoop them up.
yeah.
But yeah, there's a lot there, a lot of production. I think Netflix has like 3 or 4 shows that they have lined up in the coming months that are going to start shooting out there. So it definitely has grown in a really fantastic way.
Fighting not to do my Australian accent and make everyone scared. Okay,
Me too.
Vancouver.
Mine is terrible.
Hi. Nicole Kidman's here. Vancouver.
The Hollywood of the North, right? I mean,
Yep.
that's what they're saying. A lot of production, a lot of opportunity, some fantastic agencies, places like the Characters Agency. I share a couple of clients with. Definitely a cool place to visit and to shoot and to work there for bits of pieces of time. I have not yet had a client. I've had a lot of clients work there. I've not had a client say that they wanted to relocate there quite yet.
Mm,
But that's not to say that it's not a great opportunity or a great source of opportunity for so many actors. I think actors on the come up, folks like looking to book some co-stars and get stuff that that will help build out their resume. I think
mm.
Vancouver is a really solid option for transparently.
Interesting.
And I think all of Canada right now is really moving in the direction of creating. And you'd be surprised. I mean, it's always been there, which is really interesting. If you go and you look back at like some of your favorite shows, you'd be surprised there was always sort of a unit in Toronto or in Vancouver, but more so now than ever because of again, everything in our business is because of the money and because of the cost of creation, but tax incentives and all of that are really strong out in Canada, and so there's a lot of opportunity there now.
Thank you. That's good to know. We were going to
Yeah.
fly over to Vancouver again later on, but I think you covered that pretty nicely. So, the last one of this little flash round, again, we're giving you all sort of a blanket overview before we break down a few more things, would be Nolans. What do we have to say about
Oh, I was like, wait, what?
New Orleans? Yeah.
I mean, again, that's a city that I think is used a lot for productions that have a particular period in mind, right? Because it is so culturally vast when it comes to things like in the Victorian era, for example.
Mm,
And obviously, it has such a beautiful musical background as well. I think that it lends itself very much to stories of the past a little bit.
yeah.
Again, a place that I think would be really fantastic to live for living and for your life, not necessarily a place that I would suggest someone to go move to for the purposes of growing opportunities in the acting space.
Mm. Well, what would you say about being, I guess, a bigger fish in a smaller pond in the sense of even LA, if you're going there for theater, not many people are going to LA for theater necessarily, although that it's changing a little bit. What would you say about that? I guess it depends on your goals, right?
Yeah, it fully depends on your goals. I think LA, going sort of jumping back to a little bit of what I said earlier about New York and LA and sort of what makes New York unique.
Unique
What
New York, unique New
makes
York. We should have done
Yeah, I
that
know,
to
try to
warm up.
say that
Unique
5
New York.
times. But yeah, I think the thing that makes LA unique, whether you look at this as a positive or a negative, is all subjective. But everyone in LA is in this industry in
Mm,
some form, in some way, and if they are not actually in the industry yet. They are striving to be in the industry. They're on the struggle bus to becoming an actor or a writer, or a producer. Like a fun story, I have, I went and rented a car in LA a couple, like 2 years ago or so. And I'm standing on this line, like endlessly trying to get this car. Other people are standing on the line before me. And the gentleman looks at because we were all handing in our credit cards, trying to get all this like checkout done. And the gentleman looks at my card and sees that at that point I owned a talent agency.
Hmm.
And the credit card specifically said talent agency. Well, I got pushed to the front of the line. And I didn't know why. I was like, oh, I don't like have a membership here. I don't have points. Like none of this actually like warrants. But I was just like, great, awesome. Why?
Yeah.
Well, because the gentleman behind the desk was pitching me his headshot and resume and hoping that I
Wow.
might meet him as an actor. Later that same trip, ironically, I went to Verizon because my phone conked out and didn't want to work. And the folks at Verizon were all like sort of up in arms. And then they said, oh, we have a fantastic gal who's one of our IT folks. I'm going to have her come out and work with you.
Hmm.
And she was wonderful, brilliant, was able to make it work. I didn't have to pay the $1,200 to buy a new phone. It was a blessing.
That is a blessing.
And while, we are waiting for certain things to happen between phone to phone, she begins to tell me how she got there and why because basically I complimented her and said, like, you're brilliant at this. Like, did you go to school for IT and tech? Like, how did you
Hmm.
get started? And her answer was, no, I'm here. I moved to LA to become an actor. And so, and there are so many more stories like this. There was a waiter who handed me his manuscript because he was a writer.
Hmm.
LA is very much this space, and it's very difficult to sort of learn and grow who you are as a human being, your foundational
Yeah.
knowledge, when everybody is sort of doing the exact same thing.
Hmm.
So that's something to think about.
That's interesting. And to that I say, can you hear me now? Is that Verizon?
No,
Is well, this
I
is a
think it was.
okay. I'm
Yeah,
like, or is that Sprint? Is Sprint even a thing anymore? I
no.
would love to know. I guess while we're here, I know the world has changed so much. What would you say is the most interesting pitch you've gotten from someone in person that's worked out? Has there been someone that's done that to you at like a coffee shop or in line somewhere, and then it actually worked out and they became your client?
Wow, that's a great question. That well, a somewhat recent one happened. It wasn't necessarily someone like completely cold pitching at like a coffee shop, but it was someone that was seated at the table next to myself and my husband at a restaurant once, who was sort of overhearing me talking about frustrations, venting, a casting director, a project, an actor, like that sort of stuff,
Hmm.
and came up to me and was like, "Hey, I'm sorry, like I was eavesdropping, but I'm actually an actor. I'd love your email." He sent it, and interestingly enough, like he really was an actor with some solid credits, and yeah, we took a meeting, and this was, not that long ago. We're still in conversations, but it's definitely looking positive, and I think
Aw.
it could happen from time to time. Yeah, it really, really depends, I think.
Yeah, I'll be crossing my fingers for you, buddy. I feel like that stuff happens a lot in New York City because of, or more often, maybe I have no data here, but because of what you said, which is that it's a little bit more unusual. There are other types of folks around there. Something to consider as well. It's like, where are you going to be able to build your community?
Yeah, I mean, and like I said before, I think the reason that LA has all of these different networking opportunities, things that are sort of set at certain locations, is exactly because of what you just said. Is that it's a
Hmm.
lot harder to create that community organically. Where I think New York and its theater base, it's a very niche space, but it's very tribe, if that makes sense. I don't know
Hmm.
if that's the best word, but when you get into that community, you pretty much stay in that community and you grow, within it and then outside of it as well.
Yeah, I love that. And I love LA
Yeah.
too. I mean, I really do love LA.
I love LA so much. And honestly, I think the other positive to LA, I will say this because I think this should be included in what we're talking about, is that it is the city Well, while we were talking about community, which I think is kind of funny, but it is the city of like generals and coffees and meetings. Like
Hmm.
casting and executives and producers in LA are so much more welcoming to the idea of sitting down with an actor, having a larger life conversation and a larger career path conversation. I think than in most cases in New York. Like I have some fantastic colleagues in New York that I absolutely love and that I will lean on when I have a great actor doing something and say, hey,
Hmm.
like I would really love for you to meet this person. I would love for you to know their body of work. And they will take those meetings, but they're just less like there's just less of them, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. It's not nearly as common. Where I do feel like LA, I think I blame it on the weather because to be honest, in LA, it's beautiful and sunny every day, and casting is like, great, I'll go to have coffee any single day. I'll make this
Yeah.
happen. Where in New York, it's like most of the time when you have these asks, unfortunately, it's like it's like either 100 degrees outside and like sticky and humid,
Yeah.
or it's the polar opposite and it's like 25 degrees outside and nobody wants to leave their comfortable offices or home to make that happen.
Yeah.
But LA does have that sense of community, which I think, can be really helpful as well.
Yeah, and I think it's so personal, right? It's sort of like, do you want to constantly be surrounded by the industry? Does that motivate you? Or does it
Mhm.
overwhelm you? And everybody's different because I know people that live in LA and they walk down the street. And I'll say specifically, I had a friend who walked down the street, saw Judy Greer, who's an awesome performer that we love, had
Sure.
written a screenplay that they couldn't really get out there. And they wrote it with her in mind. They happened to walk by each other. They kind of lightly, in a friendly way, pitched it to her. It's on Hulu and she's in it. It happened.
That's
So
fantastic.
that's something I think unique to LA as well. Although of course you can run into people in New York. Now, we've talked about New York, LA. I want to just hop over to what people are starting to call Hollywood East, which is New Jersey. Fist bump.
Yes.
I could do that
Yes.
because it's my hometown and that's why I
Sure.
have big hair. Netflix is building a massive state of the art film and production studio on the former Fort Monmouth Army base in New Jersey. I know they already have offices in Jersey City. Things are happening. What do you make of all this? I mean, I kind of clump New Jersey and New York together a bit now, but what are your
Yeah, and you
thoughts?
you absolutely can. I mean, I think that so Netflix has been putting their stamp on the East Coast a lot in recent years. I think folks are not even some folks are not even necessarily aware. I have a client like starring in a TV series that was entirely shot on the Brooklyn stages for Netflix, and a lot
Hmm.
of people are like, "Oh, Netflix is in Brooklyn. I had no idea." So like Netflix has been inhabiting a couple of smaller little places here on the East Coast, as I think that they've been investing more obviously into this big production hub that they're creating and these massive stages. But I definitely think it's going to make a huge impact. I think New Jersey provides a fantastic landscape that almost can mirror a lot of major cities on screen. They have obviously their southern shore, the Jersey Shore, which essentially goes down miles and has those beautiful like sprawling opulent houses along the beach coastline, right? And then on the
Yeah.
flip side, they have the more inner city and and the vibes here in like northern Jersey. So I think that the landscape provides a really fantastic foundation for a lot of production. And
Hmm.
I think they've started to see that. I think the tax incentives, again, are definitely there, which has started to lean them into the East Coast. I think, unfortunately, the fires in California have become a big concern for a lot of these major studios. And so I think New Jersey sort of answers a problem, it is sort of the solution to a problem that they sort of are seeing develop in other places. And it's quite exciting. I mean, I think it's going to give some of the New York studios a run for their money. I think Steiner and Silver Cup and Kaufman Astoria, like I definitely, and I think they're already starting to feel a little bit of that heat, right?
Yeah.
Because movies are already shooting, especially for Netflix. One of my clients is starring opposite Jennifer Lopez in a new movie that she's doing out here or in New Jersey. I say out here because I have a house in New Jersey, so for clarity.
Yes.
But I am on the Upper West Side at the moment. But yes, there is a lot of production that has been happening in New Jersey. It's sort of always sort of sat in the background to New York for so long. I think when they finally create and open these studios, I think it's going to be wild and crazy. And it's going to give people even more reason to feel comfortable staying on the East Coast and not necessarily feeling the need to flee to the West.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, what about being bi-coastal? I think that's the dream for a lot of actors, right?
100%.
It can be attainable. It's not always attainable at first, but do you think that's a great goal to be able to have?
Absolutely. I mean, listen, if you have the means and the capacity, and what's interesting is yes, you do need you need some financial foundation to be able to say you're truly bicoastal. But truthfully, like an actor can become bicoastal because they have family on two coasts. Being a local hire, it's a two-parted thing. Casting asks this question, and they're very specific about it in many cases. Where are you currently? And can you be a local hire? Because those are two different things, right? Where you are
Mm.
currently, you might be in Texas, you might be in Kalamazoo, you might be in Utah, you might be in New Jersey. It really doesn't matter. But ultimately, like, can you be a local hire? And the answer to that really falls in, do you have the means and capacity to fly yourself to any of these locations? And then do you have a support system, a family member, a buddy, someone whose couch you could essentially stay on if necessary? Or do you want to pay for a fancy Airbnb while you're there? And if you can
Hmm.
do one or the other, then you can be a local hire in any of these places. And you could essentially consider yourself bi-coastal, tri-coastal, whatever. At the end of the day, it really just comes down to, what does your team look like?
Hmm.
And by team, I don't mean agents and managers and publicists. I mean, your home team, the people that can help support you and help you get to that next step.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, I was so grateful to just shoot something, and I think about how fast the turnaround was, which was so exciting. It was like the next day I had the fitting, and then I had to be
Hmm.
on set. And if you kind of say you're a local way or not, you can get yourself into trouble,
Oh, yeah.
or just you could totally wash out your check because you'll end up having to pay for a hotel or something. So it's
Yeah.
better to be honest and really think about this stuff, like you're saying.
100%. I always tell my clients that. Like, let's be honest and upfront. And sometimes, listen, sometimes your tape is so fantastic and, casting is really responsive to the work. Every once in a while they will be willing to call you and say, hey, is it at all possible for them to be realistically here tomorrow for a fitting? And if that's not the case, then obviously they can't push it forward to their producers and to the higher ups. But yeah, it is ideal to always be honest, always be realistic, and especially during specific seasons. Like, for example, if you are on the East Coast or on the West Coast in the winter time, and you tell your reps that you're local to a particular city, or you tell casting you are, there's a much stronger likelihood that your flight does not make it to wherever it is you have to be the
Hmm.
day before or the day of a particular fitting for a shoot. So, and that's
Yeah.
oftentimes a concern. And that's oftentimes why casting will say they have to be physically in LA in order for me to consider them for this project or that project. So,
Mm.
for any viewers and people watching this, I think that's the greatest takeaway, is understanding that casting does not want to give you the opportunity. They just want to be realistic about whether or not you can accept the opportunity. And they don't want to take any chances with regards to their production, that perhaps they cast an actor that can't show up that day, because then everybody looks bad.
Yeah. That's a really smart reminder. I wonder, as we move on here, are there any of the cities that we've mentioned or any surprising cities or regions that you would like to bring up where you think actors can really build credits and start their career?
I mean, I'm not sure that there's a place like a full-time, like a space where full-time I would say like you can absolutely really build a career, but I think that you would be surprised. A lot of actors, name actors, are looking to create production hubs in places that sort of never had them, or places that we sort of overlook. And
A surprising location for production that people have not thought of is actually Thailand. They are producing so many incredible projects as we speak, and a lot of the studios and networks have actually decided to move some of their productions there. Also, because of the beautiful landscape, the lush rainforests, and also the city foundation. So there's a lot of opportunity there.
I
Hmm.
think Vegas, interestingly enough, is one of those places. I know that Mark Wahlberg has been actively looking to expand over there. He's got studios that I believe are getting started, or they're breaking ground on. And I'm interested to see how that sort of develops, because it is so close to LA that a lot of the Vegas actors will essentially head that way. But
Hmm.
it's also like so close to LA that a lot of folks are comfortable sort of living in that space as well, right? And I think a lot of actors, a lot of humans just prefer it for a variety of reasons. And as a result, I think that it is a city that we should keep an eye on. I don't know that it's
Okay.
the place to move tomorrow, but I definitely think it's a place to keep an eye on.
Well, roll the dice and maybe you'll hit the jackpot. Rah?
There you
Eh?
go.
Vegas? Okay.
Don't lose your shirt.
I probably would, Natasha. For actors listening who maybe are torn between staying where they are and making that change, do you have any advice on a checklist or a set of questions or something they can ask themselves before deciding?
Yeah, I mean, I think that the first thing that I would ask myself as a human, not necessarily even as an actor, is, the first thing that I would look at are, like I keep mentioning, all of your interpersonal relationships, all of the people whose lives would be affected by this decision that you might
Hmm.
make, right? If your parents are still, are here, are in the picture, or are not, do you want to be significantly far away from them? If is your spouse or significant other comfortable with this move? Do they have other sorts of things going on? Your family, your kids, like, again, this is adult actors, but even youth actors, like, ultimately, is it the best decision for the family as a whole? And these are things that right off the bat you should be asking yourself. Number
Hmm.
two, I think, is, will I be happy living in this place even if I don't make it as an actor, or even if I
Yeah.
don't see the success
Yeah.
or the growth that I am hoping for or looking for? Because that's really important, again, as individuals, for us to be happy with the place that we are laying our head at night. Is the climate where I want to be? Are the people, like I said before, like, are there people to meet and learn from and grow and build communities? Are they there where I'm looking to go, right?
Hmm.
Do I know anyone? Let's say you are
Yeah.
single and you're just looking to, like, make a change. Do I know anyone where I'm going? Like, do I have any support system? Is there anyone that's going to be able to keep me on track, keep me accountable? Am I represented? I think that's also a really important question that we can dive into a little bit. If you are represented where you are at the moment, having that representation, especially during a transitional period, is really important,
Hmm.
because that representation could potentially introduce you to representation wherever it is you're looking to go, whether that is regionally in a place like Atlanta, or whether that is you're moving from New York to LA. How can that representation help you build out a team? Are they able to, provide additional insight into, how to be successful in that particular location? Going to a
That's
city
smart.
you've never been to with no representation and no friends and no family and no support system, it's challenging. It's not impossible. I've seen
Hmm.
people do it, but it's like you're starting 95% behind the eight ball, and that's difficult most of the
Yeah.
time, right? If you have a friend there, if you have someone in your community, if you have someone that can show you the ropes, that's going to make things a lot easier for you. So I think that's probably the first, or one of the first things that I would definitely look at in terms of a checklist. And are the opportunities there in line with what you're trying to do? I know we touched on this very briefly at the beginning, but, like, yeah, I mean, there's a small fish, big pond scenario, of course. I don't know many people that move to LA for theater, transparently.
Hmm.
I know you threw that in there earlier.
Yeah.
Sure, there probably would be some cool opportunities, but also there's not a ton of theater in LA, right? There are two or three really great theaters, right? But oftentimes, similarly to the big TV and film projects, casting happens in New York and it happens in LA. So, like, and they'll cast from anywhere essentially for those theaters. So you don't necessarily need to be a local hire for that theater.
Hmm.
On the flip side, in New York, if you want to do theater, like, the sky is the limit, right? There's Broadway, there's off Broadway, there's off Broadway. There's
Hmm.
so many lanes, so many theaters, and we're so grateful that that exists. If you're looking to, do animation, for example, like, you can live anywhere in the world for that, right? So it really sort of doesn't matter. What matters is, like, do you have representation in the place that you're trying to go? and most important, or in the place that you are in, and can you get some representation in the place you're trying to go? That feels like those are really important and integral to, what you're going to want to do next.
Absolutely. I think those are
Yeah.
great tent poles, and it's tricky, everyone, because this is a subject that's very personal and specific, and you can't quite as blanket cover it anymore because of self tapes, which gives us a leg up, right? Like
Yeah.
now more than ever, it gives you a bit more power to live where you want to live because you can still get seen. Of course, we talked about before, can you get there? That's a whole other story. But it's so personal to you. So the more you can ask yourself these questions and unpack it, and even just think about, okay, I'm going to take a leap. Maybe I don't know anybody in another state. Think about what Natasha was saying. How can you set yourself up for success by making a community? Can you find acting classes there? Can your current agent refer you to somebody? I mean, these are really smart things to consider. It's hard to just show up somewhere with a suitcase, like really starry eyed anymore and singing NYC or whatever it is, So I think that's smart.
That's funny. I was actually gonna go with the landing at LAX with nothing but a cardigan. And
Hey.
a dream and a cardigan. But yeah, I mean, that's ultimately
Hands up. Okay, sorry.
exactly. That's ultimately what you have to decide, right? There are ways to build community, of course there are. And like I said before, like belonging to certain alliances, becoming members of, the committee for the Academy Awards and for the Emmys. And it's actually a lot easier than a lot of actors think. You just sort of have to have like that one credit to essentially get into the
Hmm.
TV Academy and apply, and hope they get you in. But there are really cool opportunities once you get there to make a community for yourself and to build friendships and to build relationships. So I think that there's actually more of that in LA than there is in New York, interestingly enough. So pros and
Yeah.
cons. But yes, super personal decision, but ultimately my piece of advice is go where you are going to grow, whether that is growing as an actor, growing as a human, growing your support group, your family, whatever that looks like for you. But ultimately, go where you grow.
That's beautiful. Go where you grow. I'm gonna write that on my forehead and look at it in the mirror. It reminded me of the Ben Platt song too, where it's like,
Oh,
well, that's
yeah. I
that's
didn't think
grow
of that.
as we
Grow
go.
as we
Grow as
go,
we
which is
go.
also very valid. That is what's going to happen.
Yeah.
You could watch this podcast this week and think something, and 5 years from now, you could rewatch it again and be ready to make that next journey or that next change. And because we grow as we go.
Yeah. And don't be afraid. Take the pressure off. Grow where you are right now. I think if you're able to sort of, the word exhaust maybe sounds extreme, but exhaust the options around you and build the network where you are, that's going to set you up for even more success when you move.
Absolutely. And before you move, I think also you should
Yeah.
ask yourself, like, have I done everything that I can do here? Have I checked every box that I can? Have I, if I'm interested in theater, have I gone to every EPA and every ECC? Have I tried to be seen? Have I actively, made the effort to get representation?
Hmm.
And if I have representation, have I had every conversation with them that I can to, make the best of where I am right now?
Yeah.
And that's also a question to ask yourself.
Yeah, it's a great question. And because all these things evolve, right? Tax credits, where things
Yeah.
are being shot. So
It's going to keep
ultimately, it's going
changing.
to keep changing. You want to be happy where you are.
Absolutely. And I had a client that moved to LA far too quickly a couple of years back, right before the pandemic. And post the pandemic, like they're kicking themselves about it all the time because they left a place that now is a huge hub with regards to production and has great
Hmm.
tax incentives. And they went somewhere that didn't for a really long time. And now it's complicated and they really can't get out. They built a family. There's a situation there. Like they
Yeah.
can't exactly like flip the script that quickly. But yeah, I mean, being really like, yes, trust your gut, do what feels right, go where you can grow, but also be methodical. Take your time. This is a big decision. It's a life decision, right? Because
Hmm.
outside of acting, outside of our business, you are also putting yourself somewhere where like relationships will be formed and where they will grow. And that will ultimately play a part in what your next steps are in life. And
Yeah.
so it's just much bigger than this. I think that that's also really important. I mean, I know this is an actors podcast and we should be talking about, drive, like the drive that it takes and making it, but like sometimes making it is more than what you think it is. And
Mm.
it's an overall 360 approach to have you made it. Are you both successful and happy? Is that possible? Can you do both? That's a whole other topic for a whole other podcast.
Yeah, well, that euphoria only sustains you for so long before you come back down to reality. And if you don't like your reality and the ground you land on, then
Mhm.
that's going to be really tough because
Yeah.
I try to ask myself all the time, what am I doing this all for? And what are you doing it for? Is it because you love it and your friends and family? Are there other
Mhm.
reasons? So, I mean, it's good to recenter yourself in that regard because, again, like these things are very fleeting. It's up and it's down. But if you're in a place right now, wherever you are, wherever you're listening from, you're where you're supposed to be. I'm turning this into a rom-com again, Natasha. You're where you're supposed to be. Love is around the corner. No, but I really do think that. I think we're all where we're supposed to be in any given moment. And even if you make a mistake, you move somewhere, it blows up in your face, it's going to be okay. You can always pick up your bootstraps. What do they say?
Yeah, pick yourself up by your bootstraps.
By your bootstraps. My aunt
Yeah.
says that she's picked herself up by her bootstraps so many times they're tied around her ears. That's the joke of the family. But
It makes a lot of sense. And listen,
yeah.
I think we all have, right? At the end of the day, we all have had to do that. And I think there's a beauty in reinvention.
I love it. You're giving us all the quotes. And I want to continue that. Right before we let you go, we're going to play another game. This
Oh
segment
no.
is called Casting Keywords. And you're going to just have, let's say, 2-3 minutes to throw out the best pieces of advice you can for actors based on the keyword I give you. So I'll give you a keyword you're familiar with, and you just name that first piece of advice that pops into your head. Are you ready to play?
I'm ready to play.
You're going to kill it. Okay. You're such a treasure trove of knowledge that we got to talk about more than just locations with you. Okay. Getting an agent.
Make sure that your materials are really solid. Make sure that everything that you put out there is the best reflection of who you are. Send great sides if you have them, scenes, reel clips, and really just a fantastic photo. Oftentimes, that's really what you need.
That's excellent. Okay. The slate. Slating.
Slating can be very boring. And my suggestion always is to follow directions. Casting has very specific directions and don't necessarily stray from those. But once you have given, those specific analytics, your height, your name, your age, if you are interested in giving that last piece of information, you should try to do something that showcases some personality, just
Mm.
something that's unique about you. I feel like you, Robert, have like sometimes like sang the last part of whatever it is you say.
I don't even
Um,
notice. Okay.
yes, but you know what? That's what makes you you, and that's what makes you beautiful. And I think
Oh,
that
sweet.
is probably surprisingly something that probably makes casting continue to click to the next part to watch your tape and
Mm.
is excited and really wants to root you on, and hopefully you're the choice.
Oh, thank you. I love that. Yeah, I think it's do what feels authentic to you, but follow the instructions, like you said. Speaking of self tapes, what's your general piece of advice there?
I mean, it's pretty much the same. I think
Yeah.
self tapes need to be, all instructions followed, but ultimately, you've got to give this role, you've got to give this role you like the best version of you that you can. I think ultimately there are thousands of actors that can regurgitate material and say the words, but they can't say the words like you do. And
Mm.
ultimately, what casting just wants to see is what your take is on it.
Yeah. I think that's smart. It's a journey. General meetings. Those are exciting and rare, but I think they can be a little intimidating for people.
Yeah, general meetings, literally my best advice for general meetings is be yourself. That is what we want to see. I know it's a bit cliche, but going back to the conversations we had earlier, I want to learn the most about a person outside of their acting pursuit. General meetings go really well if you talk about your hobbies, things that make you unique. Ultimately, where are you from? Where do you want to go? Find things that could potentially be relatable between yourself and the casting director or the executive or the agent or whoever it is you are taking a general meeting with.
Mm.
And that ultimately is going to lead to better conversation and a great result. It's also important to know, though, and I will say this to protect all my agent and manager friends, general meetings do not mean that you're going to get a job.
Mm,
General meetings do not always lead to a job, but what general meetings can do is build a foundation of knowledge between yourself and the casting director or the producer, the creative person you are meeting, so that when the time comes, if an opportunity arises that you are right for, they'll have that information organically in their minds from the conversation you had.
mm.
And most likely they'll suggest that you tape on it or get the opportunity to, meet a creative on the project. And then ultimately, if you are, one of two at the end of the day, knowing that team, having that initial relationship, that initial conversation can only help you when they're making a final decision between
Yeah.
you and someone else.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's such a human first approach. So as much as you can humanize it, it's like meeting friends at a party, you know?
Sure.
How do you like to
Yeah.
talk with people? You don't want really someone sitting there droning on like their accomplishments. You want somebody talking about,
No.
their family farm, wherever it is, and how they grew up and all that kind of cool
And
stuff.
that's typically where you'll find some common ground.
Mm,
And I think this business can be so transactional that
yeah.
having that common ground is so priceless.
Yeah. And we all need each other. That's the way this business runs. Can't have one without the other.
Absolutely.
What about
100%.
co-star auditions? I think those can be a little tricky for people. I mean, this used to be when I got my first one, it's like, I want to show you I can act, but just saying hey. The line's hey, but I'm going to show you. You know what I mean? It's like,
Yeah.
just say the line.
Yeah, you need to, like you said, just say the line when it comes to co-star auditions. But if the lines are short, if there's not a lot of them, doing 2 or 3 takes also might help a casting director get a better sense for your personality and also a sense for your ability to make adjustments. I think that co-star auditions are a fantastic way to get your foot in the door.
Mm,
It's a great way for casting to know who you are. And ultimately, a couple of co-star auditions on your resume, it's a building block.
yeah.
It's no different than, working in the mailroom at CAA until you become a power agent. We all have to start somewhere. And so
Yeah.
co-star auditions should not be looked at as a bad thing. They should be
Mm,
looked at as, as a stepping stone.
yeah. And they're a win. I mean, it's tough to even get that. So if you got that, you're winning, y'all. Just have fun with it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, the last one here is best city to live. Gotcha. No, you don't have to say that. You don't have to say that. We covered a lot of them. Just kidding. Thank you
I
for
was like,
playing.
oh no, I'm not doing that.
I
I'm
know. I'm like,
literally going. No.
no, you don't have to share that. Thank you for playing casting keywords. I know I got to let you go. We always end with a gotten or a given. So the best piece of advice you've either gotten or given in this industry, welcome to share both as well.
I would say the best piece of advice I'd ever gotten was that nothing that we do in this business is changing lives. Nothing, even though they may seem like these timelines are immovable, like, something is due at 105 or something is due at 125. And I know that's very specific, but ultimately at the end of the day, if you are 5 or 10 minutes late on an audition or a submission, unless something is quite literally on fire, which is so rare,
Mm,
typically we can accept that, and especially if you've asked for that extension ahead of time. I think, I always had when I was coming up in this business for many, many, many years, I always felt this like internal fear, fire, whatever you might call it, to get everything done perfectly and on time and specifically and to deliver what is expected of me super duper quickly, or that I had failed.
mm,
And a fantastic casting director and a dear friend of mine basically called me one day and said, "Hey, I need something from you, X, Y, or Z." And I said, "I'm walking into a Broadway theater. Is this something that I can handle in a couple of hours, or do I have to walk out of the Broadway theater?" And he literally said to me, and I quote, "We are not saving lives. This
mm,
is not brain surgery. There is absolutely no reason why you can't get this to me tonight or even tomorrow morning."
mm.
And that was really impactful for me because, I was young. I was like in my 20s. I was
Yeah.
building an agency, and I was, and so many lives, people's lives, your livelihood, so many other livelihoods depended on me getting, my stuff done, getting
Mm.
everything out there into the world. And it was a kindness that I did not expect to receive, and also a moment, of sort of reflection and clarity. And I've
Yeah.
taken it with me. I really have.
Yeah. And good on you for learning to raise your voice, because that's like a confidence building moment too. And we all have these instances at the crossroad where it's like you can make one decision and go one way, or go make another decision and go the other way. And I think the
Yeah.
communication is just super important. And you've always communicated so kindly with me and your fellow clients. And I just feel so grateful to have you in my corner, because you're truly a dream maker. And even the advice you just openly shared here with everyone today is going to help so many. So while you may not be saving lives, you are inspiring people and empowering them just by being your beautiful self. So thank you, Natasha.
Thank you, Robert. And being with you all these years has been such an incredible pleasure too. And I'm really grateful for all of it, for the experience, for everything we've done so far, and for being on this cool podcast.
Oh, thanks for being here. And there's going to be more cool things to come. Thank you all for tuning in.